Hello, I'm Dan Gibson,
I'm Chad Doell.
and in this video we're going to just talk a little bit about who are Dan and Chad, and a little bit about why we're sitting here. Maybe I should start and say a little bit about myself. I'm a Canadian, as Chad is as well. Grew up in Canada, did schooling here in Canada. I went to the Middle East as a young man, as recently married. And so we went to study Arabic in the country of Jordan. And I grew up in a home that had a lot of interest in archaeology. Enough interest, my dad even subscribed to various archaeological journals. So he could read the articles as they came out. And so I grew up very aware and reading a lot of that material. I struggled when I was in my final years of high school. Do I become an archaeologist or do I pursue other topics? And in the end, I pursued other topics. And I was particularly interested in who are the Arabs, who are Muslims, what is their worldview, how do they think? Somebody told me, oh, don't try to understand Arabs, they don't think logically. That was way back 40 years ago, but my thought was that can't be true. And so I really had an interest as I studied Arabic and as I moved around different places across the Middle East, really trying to understand the culture and what was going on around me. And so it was during that time that I began to pick up that there's some issue with the qiblas, the direction of the very earliest mosques. And so then slowly my whole focus began to shift over to that problem and wrestling with that. So that's basically who I am and what I've been doing. I didn't start out wanting to study mosques. I really didn't have any interest in the first few years I was out there, but slowly that just became more of a focus as I realized there's something there that I really didn't understand. So, Chad, who are you? How do you know me? How do we connect?
Yeah, well, I'm a Canadian as well, as Dan mentioned, and I happened to spend most of my 20s in university and colleges and studying a number of things. My first degree was a bachelor's degree in English, and I love literature, but I studied literature long enough not to love it anymore, and now I'm just picky. So, and I studied a number of other things. One of the things I got to do is I had a short stint in the Middle East studying archaeology and languages, which I have a real passion for history. Everything from the American Civil War to ancient histories of the Near East and Byzantine history and everything in between. So I've always gobbled that stuff up, but I've tried to keep history separate from my academic life because everything I've studied, I've ended up I've sort of lost sort of that spark, right? So it came to the point where I was in a position where I was looking for work again, and we live in the same area, and I happened to marry your niece. Right. And so you were aware that I was looking for work, and especially because you were developing Let the Stone Speak, and I happen to have a skill set with literature and a little bit of experience with archaeology where it sort of clicked for us. It was a good match.
Yeah, I didn't know how it would work out. I just knew I needed somebody to go through some of the stuff, and some of it was papers I had written or videos that I had done earlier, and trying to turn that into chapters in a book and what should be in it, and somebody who had an English background. And I think we discovered that we complemented each other because my interest is in research. I love getting into all these, going through El Tabri, all 39 volumes, underlining things and making notes and,
if you're aware how expensive Tabri is, I would ask Dan for a reference and 10 minutes later you'd have it on my desk. I don't understand how that's possible. So.
I don't either. It's not that I remember, I remember where that was. What helped was technology. Really, technology has really advanced in the last few years. There's still a little bit more I'd like to see happen. It would really be helpful. But the GPS is one of those we've talked about where suddenly we could be much more accurate and we could pinpoint things in the desert. And so that was very helpful. Another thing was this whole idea of optical character recognition and being able to search, do massive searches. And so way back years ago, I started getting books and cutting them up and my wife would be horrified. What I would do, I'd cut the back of the book off of the book, and so I just have these pages in here. I drop them into a scanner and push a button, and it would go. It would scan it, optical character recognize it, and go through then and make them all actual words, not just photographs. And then I could put them on my computer. And bit by bit, I've built up what's there till now. There's about 24,000 various, whether they're books or whether they're papers or whatever, these different files. And I've got about 24,000 PDF files on my computer, and I can just hit a button. So he says, where did El Tabri say this? And I could go, oh, yes, that is El Tabri. Or he would just say, where is this? And I could go, yeah, I remember that's in El Tabri. 39 volumes, so what am I going to do? I sit down and push a button, and as long as you got the right search words, I could find it. And so technology has really helped. What's missing is we can't do that easily in Arabic script. And I really wished we could, that we had optical character recognition and search capabilities in Arabic. It's coming, but it's very slow in coming because Arabic script is a difficult set of characters to work with and how the language works.
Yeah, in our experience working with the English script, we could get a lot of work done in a day because it was so easy to find these sources, but one Arabic passage could bog us down for a day, 2 days, sometimes to try to figure it out, locate it, compare it against other sources, and it was a world of difference for us.
Yeah, so we worked together well because he worked on the English. I would write stuff and say, Chad, have a look at this. The other thing I wanted is I really appreciated having Chad coming on board who wasn't already decided about this material. A lot of people who have an interest in early Islamic history have already pre-decided how they think it happened. And then they're trying to put this data and fit it into their thoughts. And we'll talk more about that later. But I think Chad came in with a pretty open mind, and I asked him, can you check the references? I mean, whenever I quote something, that's got to be checked. And he did that. And oftentimes, I would catch him. He would be reading, instead of, here's the page in Al Tabri, he'd go look, okay, there's the quote. He'd back up 3 or 4 pages and start reading through it to make sure that it was in context. And once in a while, not very often, but a few times, you said, I don't think you can use that. I may not say what you're saying it. And then sometimes we had to go check the Arabic and check to make sure. Fortunately, I have a wife who teaches Arabic grammar, and so she's very good at pulling out some of the things, and I would go and say, does this say what I think it says in Arabic? And she could go back and say, actually, here's how it is, how it works, and this is exactly what it means. And no, you can't say what you wanted to say. And because if you're looking at it in English, you might take it one way where actually the Arabic text is another way. So actually we were a team of 3 working through this, and my wife working behind the scenes because she teaches Arabic pretty well every day. She's teaching Arabic, often to people like who are journalists or people who want to express themselves well and correctly. So that's the strength that I have, and that I have a wife who's very good in Arabic, and I have Chad here, related in the family, who's interested in archaeology and history, has a degree in English, and really has complemented. And I think we've worked together well.
Yeah, I would say the same with your breadth of knowledge, your ability to command the sources, which is almost unlike anything I've ever seen because you are well read. I'll embarrass you a little bit. You are. It's been a real joy, and I even had the opportunity to do a little writing for a couple of the chapters, which is something I enjoy, and I got to get into the weeds with some of my hobbies with the Romans. It was a lot of fun. It
was fun. Well, the 2 chapters, and Chad says, can I write this chapter? And I'm like, yes, please. I hadn't even crossed my mind that maybe he had the background and the skill to really address it more in depth. And I think like your chapter on the Romans turned out, the Romans, or the Byzantines, turned out brilliant. You really dug out some stuff and saw things that I didn't see. And that was exciting for me. And so I'm just very happy we've been able to work together.
Yeah, it's been a privilege.
So this is Dan and Chad, and thanks for listening in and discovering a little bit about who we are.
Take care.